Hey, Jim.
Hello, Sarah.
Let me mute this one. I've got multiple.
No one showed up early, like you've recommended.
Well, we did.
We did. I actually rescheduled one of my appointments to make it. That's fine. No problem. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm trying to figure out. I have two Zooms. One because look, I've got you on two screens. I'm like the person behind the Zoom controls today.
Ah, okay.
So I need to see it here, but I don't want to hear it. And so I think I do. There we go.
Gotcha.
And if I unmute there we go. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, and no like double sound or anything?
Nope.
Yay. Okay.
Just I'm echoing.
You're echoing a little bit.
Yes.
Do you still hear it?
Yeah.
I don't hear it.
You don't hear me?
I hear you, but I don't hear any echo.
All right, it's gone now.
Oh, good. Look at us, couple of tech wizards.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, since we both logged in early, we can just treat it as a one-on-one.
Yeah.
What's going on in your world this week?
Oh, I'm doing this great SIG group on how to write a book or writing a book. So I'm all
Love to
geared
hear
up
that.
for it. I have the framework actually in my book, in this book right here.
You have
So
a framework
I've
for
got
writing a book or the framework for
the
your book?
framework of the book.
Mm,
Yeah, I've just been putting off actually sitting down and doing it.
I'm really kind of in the same boat. I'm to the point where I'm really happy with my topic and my content, and I've delivered it as a keynote a couple times, but I don't know. I think I'm still marinating on the idea of what format I want it to be in. Do I want it to be like a book, like a book, or is it like a booklet?
Uh-huh.
I don't know.
There was a new person at our meeting a couple Saturdays ago. I don't know if you met him. His name is Jim Butler.
Okay.
Um, so I really appreciated his generosity. He gave me a free book, but you see how big this thing is?
Yeah.
It's 500, it's 500, just under 500 pages. And
Yeah.
it sounds great, strategies to turn around and transform your business, but small print. It's like, I would never read this size of book. I mean,
I mean, that book could guarantee that I could better parent my 3-year-old, keep my house clean, find time to exercise,
yeah.
and I still wouldn't read it if it was 500 pages.
I,
That's that's a big.
so Stan has come up with, I think, a pretty, I probably have all of his books because I shared an office with him for almost 6 years.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So his are actually very readable.
Hmm.
Um, I think he strives for 200 or less pages.
Okay.
And then there's diagrams and different things in it too, so it keeps your brain engaged.
Hmm. Yeah, I like that. I think I would do something more like that. And I have been noticing that trend at conferences a lot recently, where um, it's more the booklet format or even the workbook format. And I think a few years ago, it would have really, I wouldn't have thought that that was for me, but the couple that I have are so useful to like grab and refer to that specific part. And I know what's in it because
Okay.
it's small. So
Yeah.
speaking of the man, the myth, the legend, here's Stan.
Stan the man.
Stan the man.
Got his new photos there.
Whoa. Look at that fancy background.
Fancy pants.
I love it.
Oh,
Where'd
Oh,
you go, Stan?
huh. I went in the dark there for a second.
that lighting looks very good, sir.
That yeah, but I lost one of my cameras. That's no bueno. Okay.
I was just playing with my mic. It's haunted. If it gets even a little tap, it like I need to find a screwdriver after this call. How you doing, Stan? Other than the camera.
Um, hanging in there. Getting ready for a big trip next week.
Ooh, where are you going?
Oh, where aren't I going? I'm going to go to Denver first
Okay.
for a few days, and then I go to Michigan for the weekend. I have a full day workshop, and then from there I go to Phoenix,
Hmm.
and I have to mix in a couple virtuals during that time on the road. So busy, but busy's good.
Busy's good. That's a good problem to have.
Make hay while you can, right, Stan?
Yeah. 11 years in business. October is going to be my best month ever.
Yeah, 11 years. That's awesome.
Awesome.
That's funny. I just celebrated 11 years in business, not for speaking, but for my e-learning company. It'll be this November, will be 11 years.
Are
Tremendous.
you part of ATD, Sarah?
I was for a long time. That was a
Okay.
great group for us when we started out. I got a lot of business there. I haven't been an active member recently, but what a great, great group. Mhm. We still work pretty closely with Ronnie Duncan of Timely Text, if you
Yeah,
know.
timely text. Yeah.
Yeah, he's so great. We do a lot of referring to their group.
There was just a joint meeting last week with TODN and ICF.
Oh, cool.
Did you attend that, Stan?
I did. It was an NC State.
That's right. Yeah.
It's really good.
I'm glad you said that. I need to put their events back on my radar. I will.
I think it's the best value dollar for dollar of any membership in the Triangle.
Yeah,
Except NSA.
Except for NSA.
Well, he said the Triangle. Don't worry, Jem. He's in the right. He said the Triangle. NSA
Hey,
is
John.
Carolinas.
Hey, good afternoon. How's everyone?
John, doing well.
Hello.
Thanks. How about you, sir?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Good. Excited that you're here. What's that hat that you're sporting?
It's a little high school hat, Bandy's High School over in Catawba County.
Very cool.
Yeah, so this is my first activity with the NSA Carolinas. So I just joined recently, so I'm looking forward to finding out more about what you folks do.
Fantastic. We're so excited to have you, John. And I gotta say, I love that Catawba County area. My sister went to Western Carolina, and we just love it. We got to go out there. It's such a beautiful area. So, are you from over there?
I am. I live in the area that I grew up in here in Catawba County. I live in a little town called Maiden,
Yeah.
close to Hickory, 20 miles south of Hickory, 40 miles north of Charlotte. But you mentioned Western Carolina. I was in Cullowhee 2 weeks ago. I spoke at an event up there. So, yeah, so I'm familiar with all the parts. I've spoken all over North Carolina. So it's a great state.
Well, we're going to do introductions for everybody here in a minute, but just to share, since you mentioned that you're newer, you're in great company. So I'm relatively new as well. I'm a board member this year, but Sir Steve Phelps, who's on the call, is a past president and experienced board member. And he was just sharing, he's celebrating 11 years of his business. I know.
Well, I know some folks that are involved in NSA over the years. I have Mark Sanborn, Scott McCain are friends of mine. You may recognize those names. Yeah. They're friends of mine, and famers. Yeah, well, they've asked me to get involved several times, and I've not done so. And I'm acquainted with Chuck Gallagher, as a matter of fact, too. That's a part of the NSA Carolinas group. So, big part. But yeah, I'm looking forward to learning more. I've been a speaker, presenter, seminar leader all my life, doing that kind of work. So
very cool. Well, we are glad you're here, and this is going to be a fun one, I think, to kick us off. I've got one eye on the door as we are admitting people. My virtual doors over here. I got one eye on the door as we're letting people in, but we've got some great folks already, and it's noon. So I'd love for us to get started, if that's all right. The first thing I'm going to do, I'll do it again if we have a couple other people join, but y'all, I'm really proud of the very topical t-shirt that I have on today. Are we ready?
Books.
Books.
So happy October. Happy book talk. Today we're talking all about books. We're going to talk not just about the process of writing the book and thinking about a book as a concept, but also this idea of publishing and promotion. So, okay, I've got a book, but we don't want Field of Dreams. How do we get it out there? So we're going to be talking about both. And I was looking at the list of folks who registered. I know we've got some expertise on the call. We've got some folks who have done this and are maybe thinking about doing it again. We've also got some folks who said that they have not done this before. So with our special interest groups, or our SIGs, we create an environment or a space for conversation. So we all share questions, and then we all have an opportunity to provide feedback. So we're going to open that up in just a minute. But before we do, I want to invite us to do introductions. So I thought, as part of our introductions today, if you could please share your name and a brief sentence or two about what you speak about. Let us know where you're coming from. So what part of the Carolinas are you coming from today? And then can you share, have you written a book before, or are you thinking about doing it? So who you are, brief on what you speak about, where you're calling in from today, and then any books in your past or books that you're thinking about for your future. I'm going to pick on our friend Stan, since he's an experienced board member with NSA Carolinas, and I'll ask Stan if he can go first. And then Jim, to reward you, you were the first person to sign in today, which was amazing. I'm going to invite you to be on deck right after Stan. All right, Stan, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah. Stan Phelps, CSP. I speak on customer and employee experience. I am based in Cary, North Carolina, and I have 18 books under my belt.
Wow.
Ooh. So Stan's teaching the class today.
All right.
I don't know about that.
Stan, do you have plans for future books?
You know, it's a great question. I'm working on a 2.0 right now. I'll probably be updating the current books I have as opposed to writing new books going forward.
Great. Well, we'll be excited to hear your thoughts on the process, and then also maybe doing some brainstorming with you about promoting as you have updated versions coming out. Awesome. All right. So I'm going to ask Jim to go next. And again, it's who you are, what you speak about, where you're calling in from today, and your book plans. And then after Jim, I'm going to invite Larry to be on deck.
Great. Thanks, Sarah. Jim Reckless. I am in the RTP at the Frontier on the 3rd floor. And I speak on leadership and team building, strengths-based teams, as well as I do an assortment of assessments for individuals and teams. My book idea, and I'm going to get a smile from Stan because he's heard this for a while now, is on leadership at the crossroads of people, purpose, and performance. So did I cover everything? I think I did.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jim, for sharing your book idea. I'm excited to talk with you about that today. All right. So we're going to have Larry go up next, and then I'll invite Michelle to be on deck, please. All right, Larry, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm Larry Weaver. I'm in Cary, North Carolina. I'm a keynote speaker and stand-up comedian. I deliver funny keynotes, mostly at conferences, to either kick off the conference or close the conference. And I am, for the third time, trying to write a book. I've started and stopped several times, and I'm in the process again. And hopefully, seeing some sort of end game will get me motivated to get this thing done.
I love it, Larry. I'm nervous to share a joke with a comedian, but I love to share that I have written a lot of halves of books. I've written halves of lots of books. So I am in that club with you. So I'm excited to hear from folks who have finished books and figured out which idea they carry forward. Thanks for calling in from Cary. All right, so we'll have Michelle next, and then let's put Colin up on deck.
Hi there, my name's Michelle McCone-Campbell. I speak on all things awesome. I'm very much about how to activate the awesome, and that is what my book series will be called. I have it all penciled, and it's been an idea for years, and I'm based in Davidson, just outside of Charlotte. So it's a work in progress.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing, Michelle. We're so glad you're calling in from Davidson today. Awesome.
But by the
Love
way,
her accent.
last September we did a program at Davidson at the college. Yeah, so
I know, that's how I found you guys.
Yay.
Yes. I didn't get there, but I was told it was happening.
good.
So
Oh, I love
sort
it.
you out.
Full circle. Well, happy 1-year anniversary of hearing, and so excited to have you. Awesome. So let's have Colin next, and then we'll invite John, who is attending his first meeting with us. We'll invite John next.
Thanks, Sarah. I published my first book a couple of years ago. It's a humorous guide to personal finance, and that's a subject I speak on. And I'm now writing a book that is a humorous guide to mental health, which is the next area I want to speak in. So I'm in the middle of it, and it's been really fun so far.
That's awesome. I love that take, the humorous guide too. And Colin, you're calling in from Durham, is that right?
Oh, I'm in Durham. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for joining us. All right, so we'll have John. Everyone's going to give him a warm welcome since this is his first event. And then I'm going to ask Susan, if you don't mind being up on deck next. Awesome.
Thanks, Sarah. It's an honor to be with all of you today. And like I said, this is my first event with NSA Carolinas. So I'm looking forward to the professional relationship with this group. I am out of Maiden, North Carolina, which is below Hickory, about 20 miles south of Hickory, 40 miles north of Charlotte. I have my own consulting business working in the areas of strategic planning, organizational development, and then people skill training, human resource training around the area of sales and selling, customer service, presentation skills, supervision skills, all of the people skills that they don't teach in a company, but everybody needs for success. I've had about a 35-year career in that and have spoken to audiences from as little as one or two to as many as 25,000. So it's been a real great experience for me, and I'm looking what I can glean from this group.
Awesome. John, we are just so excited to have you. Thanks for joining and jumping in on this first event. What an impressive career. We're excited to learn from you as well. And I think one of the things that a lot of us get out of this group is the community having a place to go and hear
Absolutely.
from experts. So glad you're here.
Thank you.
And John, what about books? What is your...
I've not written books. I've written a lot of periodicals, a lot of articles, but never a book. And that is on my bucket list. I've got about 2 or 3 in mind. But boys, I need some training. I need some direction. And I'm looking to this group to provide some.
Very cool. I think a lot of us could double click on that. Awesome. All right. So we'll ask Susan to go next. And then Marie, I'll ask if you'll be on deck to go after Susan. All right. Go ahead, Susan.
Cool. I'm Dr. Susan Lavelle. I speak on holistic health, lifestyle, so work-life balance, self-care, and I'm in the Raleigh, North Carolina area. I've written 1 book during COVID and plan to write another one on hormones and how they can help you reach peak performance.
Wow, I would read that. Very cool. Thank you so much for sharing, Dr. Susan. We appreciate you being here. Alexa thinks that I'm talking to her, and she said, "You're so welcome." Bless her heart, as we say in the South. All right, I'm going to ask Marie to go next. And then we do have a couple people who are on the phone. So I see Larry and Mike and Peter who are on the phone, but not on video. So I'm going to say out loud, if any of those folks would like to jump in after Marie, I'll ask them to take themselves off mute and share the quick intro of who you are, what you speak about, where you're calling from today, and what your plans are for books. Awesome.
Great. Well, I'm Marie Kirkland, and I'm so glad to be here. This is my 3rd event, and I speak about intentional life matters, and I coach about that as well, and as well as practical spirituality. I'm in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and I am a contributing author to Speaking Your Truth, Volume 2, and I'm currently writing a book about intentionality.
Wow, that's so great. And that practical spirituality, intentionality, so many good themes there. Marie, thanks for sharing. And we're so glad that you're calling in from Fayetteville today.
Thank you.
Mike popped up. Mike, I know you're on the phone. Would you like to say hi? It's good to see you again, sir.
He popped off.
Popped in real quick. I saw him. Yep, he popped back out. We'll see if he comes off mute. And then Peter A., I see you're on the phone, as well as Larry. Larry, you might be joining in from both. If anybody would like to say hello, who's on the phone?
No.
Hello.
Sorry about that.
It's okay. Ah, man, it was so close. I felt like we could hear him for a minute. If you can hear me, we would love to hear from you, but we'll go ahead and keep moving. And then
Can you hear me?
Try again. Hey, Peter A., we can hear you, sir.
Hey, I'm having issues this morning. I can't believe it, but you know, they must be doing work at the peak of good living today that I don't know about.
Well, that
so
means
I'm writing a book, except I missed Stan's deadline, so I don't know what I'm going to do now.
and you
I
said
put a
the
date
peak of
out
good
there.
living, so we know you're calling in from Apex.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm writing a book. I started it, but then because of other extenuating circumstances, I had to put it on the side. So that's where I am.
Okay, well, you are not alone based on what we've heard today. Poor Larry, I've said your name so many times because you keep popping up on the phone, but I know, I see you. You're right here. You've done your intro. I will not make you do it again. But I do see that Cynthia just popped in. Cynthia, we are all sharing our name, where we're calling from, what we speak about. and our book plans. Have we written books? Are we planning to write books? Would you like to share a quick intro with the group?
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. Happy Tuesday, Taco Tuesday, for those of you who celebrate. I am Cynthia Barnes, founder and CEO of the National Association of Women Sales Professionals. I speak on elevating women in sales, on how to help them reach the top 1%. And I have 3 published books, and I'm working on releasing the second edition of my first book in January 2024, adding 17 chapters to Reach the Top 1%, a game plan for strategic warrior women in sales, something like that. Yeah. Strategic game plan for warrior women in sales. Yes.
A strategic gameplay for warrior women in sales. Well, that sounds like a done tagline right there. Dang, Cynthia. All right. I love it. Okay, it looks like Mike is rejoining from his phone, so we're going to try that again in a second. Real quick, I'll share an introduction. Hey, everybody, I'm Sarah Glova. I'm the Vice President of Member Experience for NSA Carolinas, and I'm so excited to be your host and facilitator for this SIG, this special interest group meeting that's only open for our members, where we're going to discuss books, all things writing a book and publishing and promoting a book. What we're going to do is we're going to take turns asking questions and hearing from one another. If it helps, we can break out into breakout groups based on what you're interested in. I took some notes about what stages we're at, so we could do that if it's helpful, or we can stay all together. We're going to see how it goes based on the questions that pop in. My personal background, so I have been a business reporter for a long time. I've written thousands of articles and done lots of interviews about people who are accomplishing really big things. And something that I've noticed is that even though we like to put those people on a pedestal, we call them geniuses and visionaries and things like that, they're really wonderfully normal. These people who accomplish really big things are like absurdly normal. And so what I did was I did some research on the path that they took to accomplishing these big things. And I created a 1-page plan that anyone can follow to take these steps that normal people have used to accomplish really big things. And it removes decision paralysis, helps us be really clear on next steps. It's been a great tool for a lot of the people I work with. So I've been thinking about turning that, which is one of my main keynotes, into a book. I haven't done it yet. I was joking with Larry earlier that I've written halves of a lot of books, but I haven't finished one. So that's why I'm here today. So what I'll invite us to do next, now that we've done intros, is if you have a question that you'd like to raise to this group, people who are writing books and or have written books, go ahead and use that raise hand function. And then once that person asks a question, we'll all take turns responding. We can use raise hands if a lot of questions come up. And then if we need to, we'll break into breakout groups. So I'll kick us off first and just say, who's got a question for the group?
Well, I've self-published my first book, and I'm happy with that process as a speaker because I can sell books off of speeches and off of the brand that I have as a speaker. But certainly curious if anyone has traditionally published, if they're, you want to hit the biggest audience you can, if anyone has thoughts to share about why that might be more valuable, different, less valuable than self-publishing. Be curious to hear.
Thanks, Colin. So this question about self-publishing versus traditional publishing, for some of our friends who have written books like Cynthia, Susan, Stan, I think Marie, were talking about books. What has been your path? And if you chose self-publish or if you went the traditional route, what were some advantages or disadvantages?
I'll share first. So I've gotten down the road a couple times with Wiley to go the traditional route. Neither time got it across the line. To go traditional, you really have to have a really well-established platform and following. Mm-hmm. You probably need to get a book agent first before you go to any of the publishing houses. And there are certain advantages of going traditional. There's a cachet and a prestige behind doing that, which I think is important. It also allows you to not have to DIY everything yourself. So they provide the cover design, the layout, the editing, and they keep you on a time frame from an accountability perspective. But that's probably where the advantages end traditional. Because if you want to be able to buy your own book, it's super expensive. They control all of your IP. So your ability to roll that copy out or even control future potential iterations of that book is severely limited. And also the time frame. So if you got a contract right now to go traditional, Cynthia and I know this because we're watching one of our mastermind members, Justin Jones Fosu, go through this. From the day that he, started the process to when the book comes out is almost 18 months to 2 years. So timing is also a major disadvantage. Now, it used to be that if you went traditional, you could count on them to do a lot of promotion and marketing of your book, and that was a huge advantage. That almost isn't the case now. It's still all on you for the most part. The advantages of doing it on your own are like the exact opposite. You have complete control. It's very cheap to get to get copies of the book. But you have to DIY everything for the most part. It's worthwhile to mention that there is kind of a middle ground. So there are hybrid publishers out there that provide better distribution, that are a little better from sharing the cost of publishing, and are a little better in terms of the IP. So know that there is kind of a middle ground. But I think most people, the predominant amount of people, will go the independent or self route.
And Stan,
Is that searching for hybrid, or do you know a name of one of those if I was to find it? Sorry, Sarah.
Yeah, so there's a B Corp that spoke in the North Carolina area called Publish Your Purpose, I think. And they are one of those hybrids. So they help you with the process. They provide you with an editor. They give you accountability deadlines, and they help you push your book out. I think it was like $12,000 or $15,000 to work with them. So you pay this upfront fee. It's a pretty significant investment, and then you have somebody to work with to bring that book into the world. They do a bunch of free workshops that help explain this hybrid, somewhere between self-publishing and traditional publishing model, that are really interesting to check out if you're just interested in how that works. And their model and pricing is, unique to them. I think you could find other ones that are in a different range.
Okay.
I see a hand up from Jim and then Cynthia.
Okay, had to unmute myself. I've talked with Stan about this, but I think it's an important question maybe for the group is like what the goal of writing a book is. Is it to make it part of your business plan? Like, I'm going to be a bookseller now and I'm going to make millions of dollars selling a book. Part of the reason it's taken me so long to write a book is like everybody's written about my topic a million times. Why would I write my own book about it? Just use what's out there. And to me, it's about having my own voice. So I wrote a weekly blog for 5 years, because I wanted to, and I stopped because I wanted to. But it was just a way to have my voice. And so the book I would write hopefully would be very readable, it would touch people, but also give them something to use. So I see it as an extension of my coaching and consulting and speaking, not a product that I'm really going to jump on and just, make sure I could sell as much as I can. So I'd love to hear what other people think about, why to write and what the purpose of it is.
Oh, I love it. Okay, I'm seeing some movement. So Cynthia, I know you had your hand up earlier and you've got 3 books out. So maybe you could speak to this a little bit and share what you were going to share. And then Colin, I would love to hear from you on that too.
In the beginning, I wanted to be a New York Times bestseller for all the notoriety and another thing to add to my resume. And then I thought, what does that get me as far as monetization? And for me, if I'm going to put forth the effort and the work, I want as much of the revenue as possible. So that's why I chose to self-publish. As far as marketing, I can market as good as well as anyone because I've earned LinkedIn Top Voice badge and I have a community of followers. So as far as marketing, you can market yourself. I think the biggest advantage of self-publishing is this. When a company who has a sales force of, in my niche is women in sales, of let's say 1,000 women in sales, I can offer a customized version of my book, and like the cover page, the inside cover page, the dedication page can be a message from their CEO to their women in sales. I can upload that version to Amazon KDP, and they can order that version of their book for their women in sales as part of my speaking package. So
Wow.
not only am I speaking, getting the fee for that, I'm also getting a book in the hands of my target market, and I'm able to touch them. So that's what they call pajama profits. That's sleep money. So I don't think I could do that with a Wiley or somebody else. So ultimately, it boils down to how much control do you want, and what do you want to be able to do with it other than just have it available.
Yeah. Oh, that's so helpful. And I love the pajama metaphor. Colin, what do you have to share with us on this one?
Yeah, I was kind of chomping at the bit here. Thank you, Cynthia. You took one of mine, maybe two, but I have a couple to add. In my experience, it's not money. Nope, very little money compared to the rest of my business. But a book is a one-of-a-kind business card. It will increase your credibility, even with people who don't read your book, which is a lot. They'll go, ooh. Yeah, it can increase your speaking fee, both through credibility and because you can sell books as a speaking package, as Cynthia mentioned. And it's an incredibly proud thing that you will have done. Like, it's a life accomplishment. And I love the idea that, I speak to an audience, I get them for an hour, I get them for an hour. I can do what I can do in an hour. I give them a book, they get to go on a whole journey and learn a lot more. So highly recommend it. But if it's good or bad news for you to know, I would set your expectations away from making a lot of money from it, but ways that it can help you make money and impact indirectly.
That's great. And I just want to thank Jim for bringing this up, having us thinking about a goal for writing it. There are so many questions when it comes to writing a book. What kind of book you're going to write? Is it going to be a booklet? Is it going to be a workbook? Is it going to be a series? Are you going to self-publish? Are you going to traditionally publish? Is it going to be illustrated? I think that if we tie it to our goal, how we're going to use it, then it's going to be a lot easier to make those decisions. And we're hearing a lot of great descriptions from folks right now. I love this idea of it as a business card. Boosts your credibility even for those who don't read it. That's so great. Larry, I saw your hand up next.
Yes. So I don't have a book. I've never had a book, but I think that more than one company or client asked me to buy copies of my book to give away. So I'm wondering how often that happens for the people that do have books. Is that something that happens a lot if you have a book and you're actually out there kind of pushing it as an offering, or is that something that just happens once in a while and isn't that big of a deal?
Ooh, great question. So for our folks who have books, when you're asked to speak or do workshops or whatever it is, how often is your book a part of the negotiation? Do you give away copies for free for attendees? Is that a different proposal service line? What does that look like for y'all?
I'll tap in because I think it's a really good tool and can be a differentiator for the packages that you offer. So I typically, when I listen to what the clients, what they're looking for, they tell me about the attendees, they tell me about the venue, I come back with usually minimum of 2, if not 3 options. And one of those is always, the kind of top tier that everyone gets a copy of the book in that top tier. In my middle tier, I typically will say I'll make the ebook free for download for everyone at the event. And that's a real simple thing you can do on the back end for Amazon. So I'm always building it in. And I think what you need to realize is that a lot of times your clients have a separate budget for learning or for education that they can take money from. So sometimes you might just be able to sell books, and that will come close to what your honorarium you'd like your honorarium to be, but it's just another way to get to that number.
Another way to get to that number. I love that. That's awesome. Very cool. Cynthia, Susan, Marie, any thoughts as you've kind of seen how book content is used with part of speaker fee? Anything to add to what we've heard so far?
I think Stan hit the nail on the head. There's a separate line item for learning and development. So the more you can offer your client related to what the speaking is, you don't want to just say, well, I have this to offer and this to offer. It's got to be relevant to what it is that you're speaking and what they need. You could do things like offer, if you're using Talkadot, at the end of your speech, you can say, if you fill out this survey, I'll give you a free first chapter of my book. So that's a way for you to get them to fill out the survey. But yes, there's also non-cash considerations, if you will, for those who say, well, I can't afford your full fee. Well, you have options to offer them so that you can recoup your worth.
Yeah, I'm going to add just one more nugget onto that. So a lot of times if you speak at a conference, let's say it's an association, you can ask them, are you having like an exhibit hall or like a trade show as part of that event? Oh, you are. Well, some of my clients, what they've done is actually offered the book as part of a sponsorship for your exhibitors. And what I can do is we'll actually go and sign books at the booth after my keynote, and that's a way to drive traffic into their booths, but also it's a way to subsidize your fee and add value for their clients or exhibitors.
I love that. Love that. Okay. I'm trying to capture some of these in the chat. So after today's session, as a reminder, we will have a recording and it'll also capture the chat. So if you have anything you want to look back on, that'll be available to you. I also did get 2 questions emailed in from folks who weren't able to attend. So if you have a question, I'd like to invite one from the room, but I'll bring up one from email first, and then I'll come back to y'all and see who has something to bring up for this group. The question that was emailed in, it was in this space of, I have a book idea and I'd like to write it, but I'm not sure what the process should look like. And this is from someone who has started the process before, didn't follow through with it. They fell out of love with their book idea anyway. So from this person's email, it sounds like that was a good decision overall, but they're really excited about their next idea. They want to follow through with this book idea. But their question to me, it sounded almost a little bit like accountability. So for our folks who are writing or who have written books, what does your accountability process look like? What did the cadence of your writing look like?
I'll jump in. I actually joined a writing cohort, and it was 8 weeks, and everybody wrote on their own, but every week you were, getting in, and you had the accountability of the entire group that you wrote a certain number of words. You said it yourself, but you did that. And by the time the 8 weeks was up, I had gotten so far through the book, it was, it was easy enough to just continue and finish. So that was very helpful.
That is so great to hear. And Susan, do you mind if I ask, was that a group that you paid for? Did that group have a fee associated with it?
It did, but it was like $1,000 or something. And then it included not just the accountability, but there were 2 authors. One of them was an editor. And so she edited whatever you wrote as you were going along. So it was worth it, well worth it. Yeah.
That's so great. Thank you for sharing that, Susan. I think you have some folks in the chat who are curious about what that was called or how you
How
found
did I
that
find that cohort? I'm gonna have to look it up.
one.
It was 2 years ago. Sometimes things just pop into your email when you're ready for them, and I think that was one of them. So
Oh, I love that.
Cool.
but I'll look it up
Yeah.
and I'll send it in to you. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. And Jim, what you got?
Yeah, so I don't know if that was my email or someone else's, but that's kind of where I've been putting off writing for a long time. And it is the accountability issue I think that I need help with. And hearing Dr. Susan just say that there was a fee attached, that could actually help me be more accountable too. But 8 weeks doesn't sound very long to me. I know other friend of mine, he was part of a program that was a whole year, and it was kind of like from beginning to end, create the whole thing. So I'm curious what others would say, what to expect in terms of a length of time to go from concept to printed copy.
Oh, that would be so interesting to hear. And Cynthia, I saw in the chat you put to block writing time in your calendar and write every day. What did the timeline of the process look like for you?
The 17 chapters that I'm writing that I'm adding to my book. The second edition started September 15th. So I plan to have all of it written by November 15th so that I can go through the editing process. But I'm not one to actually sit down and type and write. To me, that just seems arduous. So I like to use technology and tools. So there are times when I'm driving and I will turn on the voice to text feature and I will just data dump a half hour worth of just content that I'm trying to get out regarding a topic. There are so many times when I'm on a walk or I'm just wherever, pick up your phone and use that text to voice in the note section of your phone, whether it's Evernote, whether it's Google Docs, whether it's on my iPhone, I have the Notes app. Just do that. And then you can go back in a text version and look at it. Take some of the webinars that you've been on and have them transcribed. You have speaking engagements, take some of your speaking engagements and transcribe them. So if you're a visual learner, you can look at that and say, let me extract some of these and turn this into a chapter. Too many people get caught up in, I have to sit at my keyboard and I have to actually type. No, ideas come to us 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Utilize that to write your content. It's already there.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That is so powerful. And I think you're right. I think a lot of us envision, sitting at the writing desk. I remember when I was in graduate school, I got to study abroad in England for a bit. And I went to the house that Jane Austen lived in when she wrote. And she had this like tiny writing desk. And everybody was marveling at this writing desk. And I remember thinking like, oh, I would hate to just sit there and right. And that image is stuck in my mind. Like we live in 2023. We don't have to sit at the tiny wooden desk. We can take our thoughts on the road with us and capture audio. We can have it transcribed. Cynthia, I use the Otter tool a lot because it provides these summaries. So I can just brain dump while I'm on a walk and then it organizes a summary for me. So then when I sit back down, I use that to structure the article that I'm writing. So there's so many tools. So that's an interesting that's such a great point to bring up and an interesting question of what other tools we can be using. I see Stan and Cullen.
So I think everyone writes differently. So if anyone tells you there's one way to do it, they're lying. We actually just got a new member of the chapter, Allie Pleiter. Has anyone heard of Allie before? So she's a legend. I think she's written 50 something books, but she has a good book. It's called The Chunky Method. And she says, essentially, we all write in chunks. And for some people, it may be 30 minutes, and I bang out 400 words in 30 minutes. Other people, like, I can't even get started in 30 minutes. I do 4 hours at a clip, and I can bang out 2,000 words in 4 hours. And what Allie says, if you can understand what chunks you do, then it's just simple math to back into how many sessions you're going to need to do between X and Y to get to the amount, the 35 or 50,000 words that you need for your book.
That's awesome. And I love the personalization there. It's not going to look the same for everyone. And so kind of reverse engineering it and thinking about, okay, what's a chunk that's helpful for me first? Oh, that's great. Thank you for bringing that up, Stan. And can you say again the title of that book?
It's called The Chunky Method. I'll put a link to I just looked up the book. I'll put a link to the book in the chat.
Awesome. Thanks, Stan. Colin, saw your hand?
Yeah, perfect timing, because Stan, I love that analogy of how much do I need to write each day to get to that goal. It just real quick reminds me of one of my favorite motivational stories. And I don't know who the swimmer is, but someone told me this story that a swimmer wanted to cut his swim time down by a certain amount by the Olympics. And he figured out how many, fractions of a second he would need to improve each day between now and 3 years from now. And I just always thought that was the coolest story. I have no idea who the swimmer was. Someone told me that. Does anybody know? I do have a question. I've been in the hunt for years.
My cousin Michael.
Oh, yes, yeah.
No, he's not my cousin. It's not Michael.
You're much taller in person, Stan. My question is around finding an editor, or what I've heard called a developmental editor. The book that I'm writing is flirting between memoir and teaching tool on the subject of mental health, and it's moving toward memoir, maybe, which I love, but maybe more than becomes a useful book to offer to clients. And so I wondered if anyone has worked with a good insider who's really an editor who's really looked into the structure and what you're doing, because I think that's something where I'm just kind of making it up as I go, and would love to have, if there's somebody who can really partner with you and help you figure out the flow.
Dr. Kevin Snyder, our current chapter president, who was not able to attend today because he has a speaking engagement, but he did email in a couple thoughts and asked me to share them if they became relevant. And one of his main points was, don't skimp on an editor. Find an editor that you feel really good about having a partnership with. And he said the comparison is, you wouldn't do surgery on yourself, so don't do surgery on your own book. And so I think his call to action was finding a really strong editor. And I think, Colin, you just brought up something really important, that I think you want to find an editor that you would feel comfortable working with, but I think you probably also want to find someone who has helped put out the kind of book that you're trying to put out. So when you talk about this book that's at this intersection of memoir with some potential self-development, professional development, who else has put out a book like that? I will say one of my favorite books about mental health is Maybe You Should Talk to Someone, and it's pure memoir, and it's not very
I just read it.
Oh, it's so good, right? And it doesn't
amazing
have or anything, but it's very applicable. So I mean, finding somebody who's helped put out something like that and really embracing that sounds like a good path. But I think for all of us, it's this idea of finding an editor that is a match for the way that we work, but also for the kind of book that we're trying to put out there. So for folks who have put out books or worked with editors, any feedback on that process, what that was like for you, how you found an editor? Yeah, Jim?
I just want to give a comment to Colin. I think you might find your idea more appealing and practical to especially younger people, because they like story, they want to hear about you. They don't want the 7 steps to mental health.
Right.
So it could be a business book more than you think.
Okay, cool. I appreciate that.
Awesome. That's great, Jim. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Cynthia, I saw your hand up. Yeah.
So you asked the question about an editor. And I would recommend that you select an editor thinking about who's got skin in the game. And by that, I mean, not everyone, just because they come highly recommended, is going to be good for you. There was an editor who came highly recommended, and during one of our conversations, he said, because I run an association that teaches women how to sell better. He said, I wonder what would happen if we had an association for men's sales professionals.
Yep.
And so I looked at him and I said,
There it is.
well, that's quite interesting. Tell me more about your logic behind that. And so he went on to display some things that were not in line with my goals. Let's just say that. So I thought to myself, how could he possibly edit my book or take my suggestions or view things through a lens that I thought was equitable if he has those feelings
Right.
and he's willing to display those microaggressions. So just because they look good on paper, if they're not in line with your goals and your morals, then they're not good for you. And I also chose someone who I offered a percentage of the sales of the book because I wanted them to have skin in the game. It's easy to provide a service, but if you know that you're going to get compensated based upon the number of sales, then you might perform better.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I had not heard that before, Cynthia. That is just
Thank
awesome.
you.
What a neat, yeah.
And it doesn't have to be money. It just so happened that she was money motivated. It could have been any type of recognition. You know, everyone has a love language. So find out what their love language is and offer that to them as a way to reward them for doing a good job.
Yeah. Wow. That's huge. Thank you, Cynthia. All right, Larry, I see your hand up. Oh, you might be on mute, sir.
Thank you. I just wanted to sort of look at the end goal. So let's say that we write our book, we finally get editor, we have a nice finished product. What happens then? I mean, as far as getting it published, I think let's talk about self-publishing. It would help me to be motivated to finish if I knew what was coming next. So what are the next steps? I've got it written, it's edited, it's in some nice final form. Maybe I even get a cover and everything. What next?
Oh, I love it. Okay, so Larry's asking us what's next. We've got a book. We're even imagining that we have this beautiful cover. It's ready to go. What's next? You know, it's interesting, Larry. Something I was reading about to prep for this call was about how you should be selling your book before it's done. So I would even say that maybe the what's next is kind of in the middle of that. I saw a lot about folks who are self-publishing their own books and they're putting out either wait lists or pre-orders where you get a special signed copy or something like that. And then there's the actual launch where they maybe have a celebration, virtual or in person. And then there's this way that you build it into your speaker proposals. So I would love to hear from the folks who have done this before. Did you do anything to pre-sell your book? What did it look like to sell during the launch? And then how have you kept up marketing traction after those two stages? So kind of looking at those three sections.
So the sort of mechanics of it. So what do you do with let's say you have it laid out in Word or InDesign, what then, as far as how to find a self-publisher, publishing on Amazon. I don't need all the details, but just sort of the next steps.
Oh, that's great. Larry, thank you for clarifying, because I think I was moving us in the marketing direction. But you're like, hey, I got this Word file. Like, what's next after that? Maybe let's jump there and talk about that, and then we can come back to the marketing part. Stan, Dr. Susan, Marie, Cynthia, when you've got the text and maybe even the cover, what do you do? What buttons do you press next?
I believe in visual, so I had someone format mine and not Fiverr format. I went to an actual designer to make it beautiful because I wanted it to be impressive. So the first version, I went to Fiverr and I got it, it was okay. But then I realized that I could level up. So I spent considerably much more money to have it beautiful, like Stan's beautiful. So the cover is one thing, but when you can open a book and look at all of you want it to be impressive. So don't skip on the editor and don't skip on the format. So I would go to 99 Designs and look at book formatting and go with the package that you can, it may hurt a little, but the one that you can afford. Yeah.
Thank you. So Cynthia, you mentioned Fiverr first. So if we do have somebody who's looking at their values chart and they're like, text is text. For me, it's about getting this thing in people's hands. You could use Fiverr to lay it out, and then they'll give you a file you can upload on Amazon and get printed. If design is one of your values, and I love the way that Cynthia had us visualizing, like flipping through a book, if that's what you're visualizing with your readers and like they see it and they see you, then maybe leveling up and looking up some programs like 99 Designs. Okay, that's great. Dr. Susan, I saw you go off mute as well. Do you have something for us?
Yeah. I was going to say, I didn't go to Fiverr, but I did go to, well, let me put it this way. I had a speaking engagement coming up and I told them that I had a book even before I had the book. So it had to get done really quickly. And I went with it was a place called 40 Day Publishing, and they got it done, but it was not, as Cynthia was saying, it was not beautiful. And so, next book around, I'm going all out because yes, it's done. Yes, it's out there, but it doesn't feed my soul. So
yeah. And hey, both of those things, I mean, this is so helpful, I think, to hear that both can happen. You got a book out there and you had it by the deadline, and that's a great goal. But then this idea of the next iteration, and I think, speakers a lot of times are entrepreneurs, and we focus on that MVP, that most viable product sometimes, and it sounds like you got one out. That's great. All right, I see lots of people writing notes. So if this section has been helpful for you, can I invite you to either call out something that's helpful so that the community can kind of hear about it, or ask a follow-up question on this topic?
I'd like to share.
Yes, thank you, Marie.
Yes, the process that I went through, and this was like many years ago, was a collaborative process, and the editing, the design, everything was a part of the package. And so while the process, we had a timeline, it wasn't, I would not do it again, right? And so it did not allow for, although our voices were in the book, but when you look at the book, you don't see that I'm one of the authors. So that's one of the things. And then the marketing was a little different. So while I am published, in a sense, it doesn't support, where I am now. So the marketing was kind of there, and it was like you have the email list, and it goes out to everybody, and people buy it, and it's Amazon bestseller. So I appreciate what I'm hearing today, and so I would do the current book differently.
Oh, that's so helpful to hear. Thank you for sharing that, Marie. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
John, sir, yes.
Sarah, I'd just like to ask a quick question for a newbie here that's never done a book before and is contemplating doing their first one. I guess I'd address this to Stan or Cynthia or to Colin specifically. If you could list, say, 5 steps, we've talked a lot about different things here today, but if you could list, say, 5, 6 steps from the beginning concept of selecting a topic to developing a production schedule for the book to finding a publisher to developing a marketing plan, what would, if you could narrow it down just a few steps, what would you say those steps are, and what steps do we not want to leave out?
I'll start off. So this is fascinating. So you ask members of the general public, do you have a book in you at some point in your life? 80% of people say, yeah, I've got a book in me. What percentage get it done, John? Colin's saying 3. 1%.
I was going to say probably closer to 1.
So I would tell you this, and I've told this to hundreds of people that has said, hey, I want to write a book. I go, you want to write a book? It's simple. You only have to do 4 things. Colin's laughing because I think I probably told him this. Jim certainly knows this. The first thing you need to do is you need to have a title, John. Right? And I would tell you that your title needs to be 1 to 3 words. You can make your subtitle as long as you want, but make sure you've got a title, something that's catchy, that solves a problem for people that reinforces what you do professionally. The second thing you need to do is people will judge a book by its cover. I'm super visual. The second thing you need to do is create a cover for that book. Cynthia mentioned 99 Designs. I think that's a great resource. You can create a contest and get 30 different looks at your cover in a week. Or if you have a designer that you work with, that you trust, they'll come back with a few options, but you got to pick a cover for the book, or you can DIY it. I'm a garage designer. DIY your cover. I don't care, but you have to have a cover. And once you've done the title and the cover, if there are only 4 steps, where are you, John?
Content.
You're pretty good at math. There's
No,
only
kinda.
4. You're halfway there. Imagine that. The third thing you need to do, and I don't care if it's 2 weeks from now or 20 years from now, you've got to put a line in the sand and pick a release date for your book. Until you've done that, you're only talking about writing a book. Now, if you're self-publishing it, you have total control of when you make that date. If you go traditional, again, 1.5 to 2 years out, assuming you can get the deal. That's the third step. There's only one more step, and it's probably the most important, John. You have to send that cover and the release date to everyone you know, like, and trust. And you've got to share with them that you're writing a book that's going to come out on this date. And by the way, here's the cover of the book. That's all you have to do. Those 4 steps and you'll have a book.
If I may, I love your ideas, Stan. Love them. If I may add a few.
Go.
Market research. Yes, and we've got to come up with titles and covers, them out there to target audience so that somebody will potentially say your baby is ugly. Because you do not want to go through the entire process of writing a book, paying for an editor, coming up with a cover, and then nobody buys it because it's not compelling. There's a difference between coming up with a convincing offer and a compelling offer. You want to be able to attract so you don't have to go out and sell, right? Attract so you don't have to attack. The only way you do that is to come up with ideas and find out from your target market, would you buy this? Not do you like the idea? Would you part money? Would you part money to buy it? Tell me my baby is ugly before I go and invest all this time and money in writing this book. Or else you will end up with a shelf full of books. And I know people who have. So market research, once you have an idea that people will pay for, then you write it. But then afterward, you've got to pre-sell it. You've got to create the buzz. If we've learned anything from that doggone Barbie movie, is that they started marketing months in advance. And then she ended up being $1 billion phenom, right? So you hold webinars talking about a chapter in the book. Every single 2 weeks, you do a webinar. You get people to come to the webinar for free, or you charge for it, and then you promote the book. Hey, I'm releasing this next year. Go ahead and sign up. You're pre-selling it. You create the buzz. Then all those people that have come to the webinar, then you go out and you have an email list and you market to them. Hey, you've pre-ordered it. It's coming out. Help me promote it. You send them a copy, have them take a picture of it, put it on social media, whatever it is. But your marketing, if you've done all the work to create it and you don't sell it, then you've done nothing but have a hobby. I'm just saying, learn from me.
That's so great. I see Jim's hand, and then a quick time check. So we're getting close to 1 o'clock. I did hear from some folks that they have to jump off at 1. Technically, this goes till 1:15, and we're going to keep it open until then. Just a reminder, if you hang on and have side conversations, this session is being recorded. So just keep that in mind. We're going to keep going with these types of questions, and then everyone is going to get the recording link in the chat. So if you want to replay the sermon that Cynthia just delivered, or hear again what the 4 steps from Stan were, then you're going to be able to come back and take a look at this. I will be one of the earlier folks jumping off, but it's gonna stay open. So before that happens, I do want to just say thank you. I love this community and I appreciate all of our events, but I have to say this one, I just feel like we were all really honest and authentic about where we've been, what we've seen, what's gone right, what's gone wrong. I mean, this is why I'm in this chapter. And I appreciate that it wasn't like a showboating, you know, it wasn't a parade of successful book stories. This was real talk. And I appreciate you all for that. Also, we're going to be sending out with the recording, if you would like to join an NSA Carolinas mastermind specifically to have an accountability group for your next book or your next book update 2.0, we would like to create one and we would love to have you in it. We're not sure if this is going to look like a weekly, bi-weekly, monthly. We're going to include all those options in a survey. You're going to tell us what you're interested in, and then we're going to create it for you because that's what NSA Carolinas does. So look for that when we send out the recording. And if you're interested in joining that, share your feedback about what you would want it to look like. I have to share one last time before I jump off that my themed books shirt, I'm going to be wearing this all day, y'all. I have an event for women in technology later tonight, and I'm bringing my books shirt. I have just really enjoyed this conversation and want to say thank you again for being a part of it. So I'm going to turn it back over to Jim, and I'm going to remind you all that this space will close at 1:15, but please continue to share your questions. Sans facilitator, continue the conversation and look for that recording and poll link afterward. Okay.
Thanks, Rob.
Thanks, y'all. All right, Jim, over to you.
Yeah, back to release ideas. My wife she's an avid reader. I mean, avid. And she has been on people's pre-release teams for, some of them are fairly famous writers, and they will have her read their books before they're released to get comments. And they're not really editing, they're just people who know the style, the voice, and they get readers to give input. And she gets a free book from that. I wonder, I see people say, hey, buy my book and put a review on it. I'm wondering, and maybe there's a reason. I know Amazon wants to have a verified buyer, maybe, but why not send them a book and ask them to, review it then? Any thoughts on that?
So reviews are super important, and they don't happen without you making it a point of trying to get them. So to your point of having like beta readers or people that are part of your book launch team, super helpful to get those early reviews. I would recommend, though, that you try to figure out a way that you can send them a Amazon gift card. Ideally, you want someone to have that verified purchase, and you're doing it in a way that doesn't sound like it's a pay for play. It's more of like a thank you for providing your feedback as part of this. And hey, if you'd like to do a review, that'd be great. But I'm going to give you a gift card to buy the book on Amazon. You got to be careful with family because they will flag stuff if they think it's, close friends or family. So you want to be very cognizant.
It's a long pause.
Anyone else have anything to share about reviews or the process?
I also did reviews for my book, and I made a list of a bunch of people who were not famous, but who had, cool jobs or, a level of credibility. And I think I sent them like the first chapter and a sense of what I was looking for. And I think a couple people asked to read the book, but just to be transparent with you, a lot of them didn't read the whole book. So I think that's a pretty normal process. And then if you get 10 cool reviews like that, definitely helps. And you're not actually asking them to do too much, even if it's your topic. I had one guy who was just like, financial literacy is the most crucial thing, and Colin does a great job. And I was like, I don't think you read this book, but it's very convincing review. So just to add to what Stan said.
To your point, Colin. Oh, go ahead, Jim. I'm sorry.
Okay. What about getting people to review it and write like on the back cover?
That's
all that endorsements.
Yeah, what's typically referred to as a blurb or a testimonial. So you typically need to start that process maybe a month or two at least before you think you're going to put it up for sale, just so you can get it into the layout of the book, the interior, and what you're going to put on the cover. I think that's important to get those people to vouch for it, Jim, but it's not necessary.
Okay, quick follow-up. Do you reach for like level up in terms of who you'd like speaking on the back cover, or do you just take what you can get?
I think you always got to try to hit a few home runs. So my first book, I got Tony Hsieh from Zappos to give me a blurb. When we wrote Pink Goldfish, my co-author knew Dan Pink. And so Dan Pink gave us a blurb. Those are the type of ones that you get that get to the back cover of the book, or even on a call out on the front cover. But I've done as many as 20, and I've done as few as like 3. It really just depends. And what last thing, I think you want to be also thinking about who do you want potentially to write a foreword for the book, if that's something you're considering. And that's someone you want to have a little bit of heft to do the foreword.
I just want to clarify quickly my last comment. I was talking about blurbs on the book, not rigging Amazon reviews. So when I heard reviews, that's what I meant. I felt like I should just clarify.
When I ask for reviews, I think of it like when you ask for a recommendation from your college professor. You kind of want to give them a framework of what to say, not telling them what to say, but a framework. So I'm very granular and specific about how I want them to craft their review, whether it's a recommendation on LinkedIn or a review for my book. So I make sure that if you want SEO, search engine optimization, to be a part of your strategy, I would recommend you come up with a framework of what you want them to say and some keywords to sprinkle it in there, and maybe even write them a draft of, here's an example for you to follow. Please craft it in your own words. If not, then people are unlikely to do it because they just don't have the bandwidth to come up with something for you. And if you leave it to chance, then you'll get anything. I like the book. That's helpful. That's not helpful. So help them help you by giving them some gentle guidelines around how to craft something that helps you. That would be my recommendation.
That's the Jerry Maguire approach. Help me.
You're killing me, Smalls.
When you're done, you scream, "Show me the money."
So John, you asked kind of a broader question of like, and I apologize that I probably took the shortcut to accountability, because I think that's the biggest like challenge. You know, technology can be a really good friend as you write the book, as Cynthia mentioned. I would not recommend trying to write the book in Microsoft Word. Google Docs is probably a little bit better because it's a little more searchable. But I'm a big fan of a tool called Scrivener, and I'll find a link and put it in the, but it's like a $60 or $75 tool. But imagine like writing your book on like note cards, and your ability to like create and create kind of a hierarchy and chapters and subchapters and literally build out. To me, that Scrivener is a really good writing tool, which also allows you to kind of put all of your research into folders that you can access it. Has anyone ever used that as a tool? No. Thank you, Cynthia, for putting it in there. You can get it for Mac or PC. And just watch a couple videos on YouTube on it if you want to find out. I probably didn't do justice to how it works, but I find to be able to track your words and organize stuff and move stuff around, it is super helpful.
Stan,
that sounds great. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, I noticed. Excuse me. I noticed that somebody made the comment that I know it probably differs from author to author, but you're looking what 35 to 50,000 words for a book.
Yes, I found that is the sweet spot.
Okay.
You could get away with 30,000 if you've written something that's 60,000 words. Unless it's amazing, it's doubtful that people are going to read it.
Right.
You want a business book like that somebody can consume on a long plane ride. That's just, I don't know. That's just my take on it. I will also tell you that not that I've cracked the code on it, but I think a good business book has 3 parts to it. The first part is the why. You've got to make the case for what you're writing about. Why is it important? And why, why should they read further? You got to make the case very quickly of the why. The middle part of the book, and let's call it the meat of the book, is the what. So, is there a framework behind what you're proposing? What's the 6 or 8 parts of it, or the 10 parts of it? But you need a framework, and you need to be able to put that in a way that people can understand. And then the last part of the book, if you're writing a business book, to me, needs to be the how. So what do you want somebody to do? How do they what's the first step? What's the second step? And again, that could be another framework. But I found that that's a really concise way of thinking about the outline of the book.
Another quick question, and this doesn't necessarily relate to the production of the book or the development of the book, but we talked a little bit about the concept of using the book as a calling card as a speaker. And how do you balance, and I know we probably have both sides of the argument here, but how do you balance what you put in a book that would serve, primarily as a calling card versus a book that you really want to push to solve an issue or solve a problem? I know a lot of speakers out there try to put something together just to have out there as a calling card. Where are you folks at on that? I mean, it seems to me like if I'm going to take the time to do a book, I want it to help solve a problem as well.
Yeah. I think that's the ideal goal. I will tell you though, when you write a book, it should not be about perfection. And to Jim's point earlier, like what I'm going to write about is already out there. Yeah, 80% might be already out there. Yeah. But your 20% is your spin that you're going to put onto what's already out there. Don't feel like you have to have 100% of the new stuff. So I tell people this is, my friend told me this came from the Navy, but you're shooting for 70% perfect, 100% done. You know, and I've already done 3 of my books as a 2.0. You can always go back and update the book.
Absolutely.
You can always go back and make corrections and if you do it on Amazon, upload a new interior. Don't feel like, God, I've got to get this perfect before it can go out to the world.
Good.
And a way to practice that, John, in addition to Stan's brilliant formula of like, pick the publish date, send it to everybody. I love that. A way to do that, and I think other people have given their slant on this, but I try to write for minimum of 30 minutes, Monday through Friday. Don't break the streak. If you get into it, you want to write till noon, and you got the time, yeah. But I try to do that first thing. And I tell you, I mean, I'm doing it again. If I break the streak, I'm going to miss a week. But if I just keep it going, 15 minutes a day, just something small enough to keep the momentum, that helps make a massive thing feel, now you're in it, right? You're at least a chapter in.
Mm-hmm.
Now you really are writing a book. You're not just talking about it,
Yeah.
That helps me.
The last hour has been very helpful to me, and I appreciate all the comments and thoughts that you have given. You guys are a bunch of pros, and I'm glad to be hanging around with you.
Likewise. Well, thanks everybody. I'm gonna jump.
Have a good
Thanks
day.
for jumping into co-host there.
Were you talking to me? No.
Jim.
Okay. It's like, I'm
I didn't
pretty
know.
sure
I didn't know I did that.
Oh, I
Thanks,
thought
Jim.
maybe you were. I thought you were taking the reins there.
I didn't
Okay.
want to take credit.
Well, hey, thanks everyone for your being here.
Yeah, this was awesome.
Yep.
All right. See ya.